I'd like to welcome everybody to the 47th meeting of the 7th Council of Municipality of South Dundas, and a big welcome to all those on Facebook Live. I've heard good news from, or good reports from those who are listening in, and as much as this won't be a forever trend, we hope, it certainly is here now, and County Council had a meeting this morning. It worked out fairly well with a half-decent audience too, so good to hear. Good to know that people are at least wanting to know what we're up to. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and a confirmation of agenda. Is there any additions, deletions, or amendments at this time?
Mr. Mayor, may we do the roll call first?
Sorry, you need to put that as part of the agenda now, so I remember. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Mayor Byvelds?
Yes, here.
Deputy Mayor Gardner?
Here.
Councillor Lewis?
Here.
Councillor Mellon?
Here.
Mr. Wells?
Here.
And tonight for staff, we have CAO Garrity,
Here.
Supervisor of Water and Wastewater,
Here.
Director of Transportation,
Here.
Treasurer,
Here.
EDO,
Here.
Deputy Clerk,
Here.
Director of Transportation, Director of Transportation,
I'm here, Brenda.
Deputy Treasurer,
Here.
and Clerk Brunt. That's it.
Okay.
Full house.
Go back to confirmation of agenda. Any additions, deletions, or amendments? Councillor Mellon?
Yes, I'd like to, and I think it's a housekeeping, I think it may be already been done, whole consent agenda 8A, South Dundas Regional Drinking Water System Inspection.
Okay. That's been moved to 9H. Anything else?
We'll add an addition to the RSL discussion item. We've had a piece of correspondence to go with that, so we'll add that to the agenda. Under 9E.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof this evening from any other member of council?
No.
Okay, I actually have two tonight. I'm declaring a conflict of interest on the first one is 9C, which is the key information report on the TA Weaver drain. Reason being, I'm a shareholder of Bycrest Farms, who's a major landowner in that drainage area. And the extra conflict is 9G, which is a key information report on Ontario Street reconstruction. It's specifically to the discussion of any work for the Morrisburg Curling Club, as I am a member. I have forwarded both to the clerk, and I have the original copy here. At that time, I'll call on the deputy mayor to meeting. So, and we're the adoption minutes, please.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Wells, that the minutes of the 46th regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas be adopted as circulated.
Any discussion on the motion?
No.
Seeing none, I'll call the vote then.
Mayor Byvelds,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gardner,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
Yes.
Councillor Mellon,
Yes.
Councillor Wells.
Yes.
Motion is carried. No delegations or petitions tonight, so we'll move on to 6 action requests. First one is TR 2020-04, compactor financing.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept report TR 2020-04 to authorize the transfer of $212,005.08 from the Fleet Replacement Reserve Fund to fund the over budget amount from the landfill compactor purchase.
Okay, before I call on Sarah, I'd like to have all council members mute their mics if they haven't muted them so far. If the feedback is there, I hear it. Thank you. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Back in March, Council approved the purchase of a compactor for landfill operations. The purchase was over budget, and Council asked staff to come back with a report as to how we were going to finance over expenditure. In my report, I'm recommending funding the $212,000 over expenditure from the Fleet Reserve Fund. Funding from this reserve will leave the reserve at a projected balance of $406,000 at year end. I also looked at funding the over expenditure with the remaining service modernization funding. But with all the earmarked projects we have, there isn't sufficient funding to cover the whole expense. I also thought that council may want to hold on to these funds to use for any future initiatives to improve services. Regarding the Fleet Reserve Fund, we'll be taking a further look at the fleet replacement plan later on in the year to revise future purchases and update estimated useful life values. With that said, I don't foresee funding the compactor with this reserve will have any financial implications for funding fleet in the short term. Council can consider adding a contribution to the fleet reserve in 2021 budget for landfill operations to repay the reserve fund for the compactor purchase. I'll be happy to answer any questions council has.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Gardner, start.
Thanks, Mayor Byveld. I don't actually have any questions on this. I think we had a pretty good discussion about the necessity for this, so I'm okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Councilor Lewis.
No, I agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner. We had a very lengthy discussion on this, and I have no problems and I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon.
Well, yeah, we had a lengthy discussion. If I could, Sarah, the modernization fund, what is that earmarked? Is it earmarked specifically for certain items, or can it obviously can be used for a compactor, but is it somewhat flexible to where it can be used?
So there is a lot of options, but the province did want to spend it on initiatives that do improve services. So they don't want to see us going and spending it on a road. There needs to be some sort of efficiency with using this funding.
Yes, I agree with that. The 2 half-ton trucks that we deferred at the last council meeting, I guess it was, at 81,000 that was budgeted, 81 and change. That was from the fleet reserve that those fundings were.
Yeah, so that number is included in my report for the 2020 budgeted expenditures.
Oh, okay.
For the 547,367, that includes all approved budgeted expenditures.
Okay. So if we don't use that 81, if we don't buy the trucks this year, that 81 would go back in, or is that included in there now?
So that money would just stay in the reserve.
I realize what we're trying to do, and I do appreciate it, and I agree with it. I just get a little bit antsy when I see the fleet reserve being depleted. I had some brain waves of whether or not council would entertain the idea of using some of that money from the modernization fund. The majority of it come from fleet reserve, but just getting down, and it'll be at 406. Next year we're going to have to, yes, we're going to be doing some catch up next year in budget time, and there might be some other items that we can maybe save on fleet reserve or whatever. But that would be my only concern, I guess, is drawing down the fleet reserve, and but I don't want to draw that modernization fund down to a level that we can't utilize it, so, or have use for it, or best use of it. But I would just, on Sunday morning, I was thinking maybe, or not, we use some of that money from modernization to offset the cost of the Packer and take the majority out of fleet reserve. That's my only comment right now, Mayor Byveld.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Wells.
No, I agree with the rest of the colleagues there, like the money's there in the reserve. Councilor Millen, as far as going down, I agree, but like right now, we need the money. That's what reserve for. More and get it back up, start bringing it up again. I'm sure everything will work out. I'm good with the report.
Okay, the only mic off, Lloyd, please. Thank you. The only comment I have is I do like the idea staff's going to revisit what's in fleet and lifetime expectancy. I think that discussion was at budget. So going forward, that'd be a good exercise for us to go through as it is. Understand where Councilor Mellon's coming from, but this is a long time purchase. So over the next few years, we can kind of pay back what we're taking tonight, and it should all work out in theory. So is there any other comments from anybody yet? Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, I guess, Mayor Byvelds, I do agree with the rest of council. I guess I would be amiss if I had, I mean, you're right. We're going to have to deal with things down the road. So I can agree to support the motion as it stands.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll call on the clerk for the vote, please.
Mayor Byvelds,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gardner,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
Yes.
Councillor Mellon,
Yes.
Councillor Wells.
Mic on, Councilor Wells, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is passed. So next action request is ES 2020-03, the Iroquois Outdoor Rink Building Demolition and Abatement.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Lewis, that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept report ES 2020-03 to approve the demolition of the Iroquois Outdoor Rink facility using Windmar Construction for the price of $25,268 plus HST.
Thank you. Danielle?
Thank you, good evening, Council. So before you this evening is a report outlining the outdoor rink building demolition and abatement. So staff put together a quotation for outside contractors that have a specialty in removing asbestos waste. The reason why we did this is because we did have a designated substance report completed in 2018 that outlined that we did have some asbestos in the Iroquois outdoor rink building. So when we went out for a quotation, we did receive 3 quotes back. They are illustrated within the report. And of the 3 submitted, 2 of them are do provide professional services for asbestos removal, specifically for types 2 and 3 that were determined to be required through the DSR report completed by Buller. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Start with Councilor Wells then, please.
Yes, Danielle. I seen the report and that. This has been a thorn in my side, like big time. I cannot bring myself, and I read the abatement one. This, as far as taking this building down, there's no reason that it can't be taken down in abatement one. That report, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't mean, as far as the building goes, we've taken them down before. There's a contractor out there who'll take that building down for like a fraction of what Windmar is going to take it down for. You sign off on it, and there's no reason we can't sign off on that building because there's a building, the Iroquois campground was just taken down in the fall that was built actually earlier than the outdoor rink, and I'm sure that there wasn't even a abatement done on that one that I seen. But I can't bring myself to agree to pay Winmar where the building is, and if it's knocked down with a hi-ho, no great big crushers or nothing, just knock it down. There's water there, have water's being sprayed on it. There's no chance of dust or anything. So it will classify as abatement 1. As far as this power tool and all this stuff goes, I think it's a waste of money on taxpayers to accept that when we can take it down for a fraction of it. And no, I disagree with that, because that building can be taken down in about 3 hours, spray water on it, and 6-7 truckloads, mostly blocks. As far as the report is asbestos and that, we're talking the caulking, the ceiling, which is tiles and that. There's nothing there that's going to harm anyone, not the people taking it down. I talked to the other contractor, went over this last year, and I'm not going to agree with that. I think we can go the other route and spray the building down with water and remove it just like we did the campground building.
Before I call on Councilor Mellon, C.L. Garrity, did we do a substantive report on the old campground before we took it down?
Not that I'm aware of. With the in speaking with the engineer or the previous director of recreation, there was never an ESR done on that.
Wasn't the floor taken out for some reason, or that was just?
Yeah, so to that point, there was a report that did find asbestos in the flooring, which we took out. We removed that prior to the demolition.
But the rest of the building didn't have any in it?
Not that we're aware of, no. If I can to add a little bit of context, just for a little bit of history for council. So back about 5 years ago, we did do similar demolitions to the Parks building, as well as the Winchester Springs. We did go with the abatement report as well too. And just for context, the Parks building actually cost about $50,000 to do the abatement removal alone. That wasn't including demolition at all. So just for some context for council.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Councilor Mellon first, Councilor Lewis. So.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Byvelds. Yeah, I read the report over, plus the two emails that came in this afternoon. Tried to read them over quickly. I had to agree with Councilor Wells that it is a lot of money, and it's a frustrating process to have to go through. I guess maybe, I don't know if Shannon or Danielle, I guess, can address this. Since we did the abatement or the substance review, if there is consequences, what would the consequences be if we didn't go with Winmar and we went with a different or a cheaper route?
Go ahead.
So maybe I'll start, and then if Shannon wants to jump in, he can. So I did send the Ontario Health and Safety regulation to you as well this afternoon. I apologize for sending it so late. I know it's a lot to read. The section, though, if you look through, there are penalties associated with not following the act, and those vary based on the severity of the act. The other thing you have to consider is the environmental factor of that. Our landfill we can't just accept asbestos. It has to go to a specific facility. So if we were just to rip it down and mix it with all the other construction material, we wouldn't be permitted to take it at our landfill anyways. We're in the middle of doing an expansion, so if we're doing stuff like that, we might not get approval for an expansion. That's my opinion. But it is outlined as an Ontario regulation. So if we were to go against that, the municipality would be open to some penalties. I would assume very severe too. I don't know if Shannon has anything to add, but.
No, I think well said, Danielle.
Yeah, I read through that report that you sent out this afternoon, Danielle. I tried to go through it quickly. There's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo in there, but In that report, in that, what they're saying is, I guess, that you can't use a shovel, a high hoe to take that down if it's, I don't know, like, it's confusing because we're getting somewhat mixed singles. I respect Councillor Wells' expertise in the field, but also staff, and when we have an abatement report already and whatnot, so, but we cannot, is that what I'm getting, that we're not allowed to use a shovel?
Based on the review of the substance report, it did indicate we could use level 1 abatement. So level 1 abatement would only be permitted if we didn't use a power tool. So a power tool is anything that isn't manually driven. So any high hoe, any bulldozer, anything like that would be considered a power tool. And the reason why is because the power tool vibrates when it operates. And if it's vibrating against an asbestos substance, it can make a non-friable asbestos substance become friable, so airborne, which then can lead to people inhaling it, and that's where the issue lies. So the reason why we've decided, well, we haven't decided, the reason why we have to do level 2 or level 3 abatement is because of that. The shingles and contain asbestos, so to remove that all by hand, staff just didn't feel that that was practical. So that's why we went with this level 2 and level 3 abatement.
All right, thank you. That's all I have for now, Mayor Byvelds.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis, please.
Shannon, if I'm not mistaken, 8-10 years ago, we had a company come in and they went through most likely 60% of our buildings. And I believe if you dust some of the books off, you will find that that we do have a report on these buildings on asbestos and lead paint, because I know for sure that they did do the outdoor arena and air qual. They did the the old school that was in Dundee. They did Winchester Springs. I'm not sure how many buildings they did, but it was a very hefty number. And that's where I'm going to leave that. I know where my colleague Councillor Wells is coming from, but I do believe the staff has done a very good job on this report. I don't think that, my personal feelings, I don't think that you would spend money foolishly. I hope you would not spend money foolishly. And I have gone into these abatements before with the renovation of the old high school, the Parks building, Winchester Springs. I know $25,000 sounds like a fair amount of money, but I think if we prolong this very much longer, we will not get an outdoor rink building in Iroquois this year. So I will support this from you, Danielle, because it's just gone on too long. Thank you.
Mayor Gardner, please.
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. I completely understand Councillor Wells and the rest of my teammates obviously wanting to look at the bottom line with everything that's going on. However, I think in this particular situation, we've just gone too far down the rabbit hole, and I don't think it would be fair to put our professional staff in a position whenever the study has been done. It's been indicated that it's dangerous and there are health and safety standards that have to be adhered to. I personally wouldn't want to be put in that position, and I think it needs to be done because, like I said, we've just gone too far down the rabbit hole. And it is curious about the Matilda landfill. We've had extensive conversations about the capacity at that landfill and also our willingness to want to expand that landfill. And just to Danielle's point, even risking or putting that in jeopardy would not be good. And there's no guarantee that a cheaper removal wouldn't cost us a lot more to get rid of that stuff. So I'm comfortable with the recommendation.
Thank you. I'll say a few words. I know it's challenging. We had a fair discussion at our at council last year concerning this. I know sometimes the easy way out sounds good, but isn't good. Some of the confidence I have is that one of our major contractors was willing to take it down, but he wasn't willing to sign off. And that meant to me that we still had to do the work. And just going out and finding whoever will do it cheap, and we still end up not being able to put it in our landfill, it is a challenge. So I know that $25,000 plus it sounds like a lot of money. I won't agree, but disagree with that. But I don't see any other realistic way out of this. So, Councilor Wells, I imagine you still want to have some discussion.
I would like to see why and where it says, Danielle, where we can't take abatement one, because over the years, unless things really change, I've taken VCT tiles out of buildings. That's abatement one, put them in garbage bags and took them to landfill. What we're talking here is like, even though what the report's saying is minor, what's there for asbestos. I'm sure you're up on all that stuff, but I've been around here too a long time, and stuff like that is just the money, I think, and I'm still disagreeing with the report, and you're doing a great job. I'm not towards you like that, but this is something as simple as what we did 6 months ago and taking down a building twice the size for, well, actually it was, I think it was $10,000 to take the campground building down. But anyways, I guess it'll come to the vote, but that's my opinion.
So before I go, Danielle, can you explain what you did at the Matilda Hall and with the tiles there? Because there was significant discussion in the past over what we had to deal with there, and I know Councilor Wells was highly involved there, so he wasn't here to acknowledge or know what went on. So go on with that one, and then at least that gives some context to that one, please.
Yes, so at the hall, we did a level 1 abatement. We actually just finished maybe a couple weeks ago because we did remove floor tile. So because we didn't need to use power tools to remove the floor tile, it was fairly easy. It came up really easily. It wasn't adhered well, so it came up really easily. And we did a level 1 abatement. We followed the procedures with level 1. Our staff had no issue removing that. It was fairly simple. We arranged for the proper disposal of that material. And yes, level 1 abatement is significantly less expensive. The problem with Iroquois Rink building, again, like I said, yes, there are certain aspects that could easily be a level 1. The caulking, for example, around the windows could be a level 1. The problem lies within the roof. So based on the Buller-Crichton report, the roof has asbestos in it, and I'm not comfortable, and I don't believe the recreation and facility staff are comfortable removing that without, again, a power tool that would lead for that non-friable material to become friable and airborne. So that's the difference between Matilda Hall and the Iroquois Rink building.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Wells.
Just one last remark on that. As far as we're getting on this power tool thing, you said you can use hand tools. Well, you put someone up on that roof, 3-4 guys with sledgehammers, you're pounding down through it, or you take a high hoe and you just put the weight down to knock. It would be so simple, but anyways, I've talked enough.
Okay. Councilor Mellon, anything further?
Yeah, Mayor Byvelds, as much as I know where Councilor Wells is coming from, we've been around this. I've seen this go around and around in circles on some of these projects. And I can honestly say that I think it's a ridiculous amount of money, but it is the game we're in. Unfortunately, game is a poor way to describe it, but the fact of the matter is we have the report. I got to agree with what Danielle is saying, that I don't think I want to take the chance of the ministry or authorities or somebody coming in with a hefty fine. You know. So I think, as much as it is a lot of money, I said when Swank gave us a proposal back a few months ago that come hell or high water would get this building built. And the water's high, and 80 isn't too far away. So I'm going to accept Danielle's report and her recommendation, and we get this thing out of there.
Anything from Councillor Lewis or Deputy Mayor Gardner on this further?
No, I did my little spill. I'm happy with Danielle's report, and I will support her on this one.
Gardner, anything further?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Danielle's proposal.
Okay, we all good for vote then? Okay, Madam Clerk, vote please.
Mayor Byveld?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes.
Councillor Mellon?
Yes.
Councillor Wells? Can't hear you.
No.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay, we're moving on to bylaws now. First one is 2020-31, Miller Waste Services Contract Extension.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Councillor Wells, that bylaw number 2020-31 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2014-28 to extend the agreement with Miller Waste Systems, Inc. for one additional year be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Danielle, any further comments on this?
No, so we discussed this at the last council meeting. So what's in front of you this evening again is just a bylaw allowing us to enter into that contract until May 2021 for curbside collection, recycling, and garbage as is, no changes.
Okay. Any comments, concerns from council? Councilor Mellon?
Yes. Yes, Mayor Byveld. Yeah, we had a good discussion on this, and I agree, and I still agree of extending the contract. I guess, Danielle, when we had a committee of the whole meeting on, and it's in the agenda a little later, a little farther on, about our garbage bylaw. And when we renegotiated this contract with Miller Waste, are we going to have them drive down each road twice? Because we're looking at, on the rural section of our roads, only traveling one way on those roads. So there's a considerable savings, and financially and time-wise for Miller if they only go down our road. Because when will that other policy come into effect? If it comes into effect immediately, then I would suggest we just hold off on putting our garbage out on one side of the road, and they're going to get paid to drive down each road both ways, and they drive down each road both ways. But I do agree with extending it. I just the committee of the whole came in after the council meeting where we talked about this, and so that's my only beef, I guess, that we decided to go one side of the road pickup. If that comes into effect immediately, we're going to be saving some time and money.
Danielle, comment, please.
Yeah, so this is just an extension of the existing agreement. So if we were to change something like that, Councillor Mellon, that would be the bylaw that we presented at committee of the whole wouldn't come into place until the next contract. So we'll talk about that. But so this contract, they will continue driving down the road twice in those areas.
Councillor Wells?
Yeah, I was just, Danielle actually just said what I was going to say, because it is an extension of a original contract, so it's in there to do exactly what is in there. The only thing, Danielle, I agree with the extension, but is there any way, like, maybe you could approach Miller and just see if you can tell them what we plan on doing in the following tender process, and see if they would do a difference, like without making a big deal of changing the contract. It was a matter of just taking the initial thing and changing it, which I've seen done before, the garbage contract and different things, but tell them we're leaning towards the next tender and see if they can make a difference on this one. But legally, they wouldn't have to do anything. They just continue doing it the way they want, and we still have to do the extension. But I'm just wondering, maybe they would agree. Might save them time and money too by doing that. That's it.
Yeah, we certainly can approach them and ask them that question. Staff, like I haven't approached Miller and asked them what they think of our proposed bylaw that's with us this evening, just because council hasn't approved that new bylaw yet, but I can certainly approach them and see if there's a difference, and see if there's any savings to be had. And if there is any savings, I can also bring that back to council so that you guys are aware of that.
Okay. Any other comments from any other member of council? Seeing none, all heard the motion. Vote please.
Mayor Byveld?
Yes.
Mayor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes.
Councillor Mellon?
Yes.
Councillor Wells?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next bylaw is 2020-32, recycling processing agreement with the city of Cornwall.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Gardner, second by Councillor Mellon, that bylaw number 2020-32, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the city of Cornwall for the processing of recyclable waste, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Danielle again, please.
So this contract is a little bit different. So you just entered into a bylaw to extend the agreement with Miller Waste to do curbside collection. This bylaw would be allowing you to enter an agreement with the city of Cornwall to do processing of recycling. So previously, council was in agreement with Miller to do both collection, curbside, and processing. Based on our discussion at the last council meeting, we decided to go with option 2, which we would enter into a contract with the city of Cornwall separately from Miller Waste to save ourselves some additional money that would be required. In front of you is the agreement that the city of Cornwall has with its local municipal partners for recycling. So just a little brief outline. We did talk about this at committee of the whole. So the city of Cornwall charges $301 per ton for recycling. However, they do share revenue, and that revenue is estimated to be around $55 per ton. The municipality contributes about 508 tons of recycling per year to the Cornwall facility. So I do anticipate that while we are going to be paying a lot of money for recycling processing, that we will get some of that money back. The good thing also about this contract is if we choose to exit, we only have to give 30 days. So we would only have to give them 30 days notice if we found an alternative option that we wanted to pursue. I'm willing to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Okay. Any comments, and maybe go around the table on this one? Nobody's seen this yet. Deputy Mayor Gardner?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. It's probably in there, but if we only have to give 30 days notice, is that on their side as well? Like, how quickly can they dump us as far as a client?
So I believe it's the same time frame. So again, the 30 days notice. However, I don't I think it would be more than that. I'm actually just looking here. It says the city agrees to provide the municipality with 60 days written notice. So they would give us 2 months written notice if they're going to change it. And I anticipate we do have a pretty good working relationship with them. So I anticipate that they would give us even more notice if they could.
Okay. Council Lewis?
No, I have no questions.
Thank you. Council Mellon?
No, I'm good, Mayor Byvells.
Council Wells?
No, I have no questions either.
Okay, then I'll call the vote then, please.
Mayor Byvelds,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gardner,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
Yes.
Councillor Mellon,
Yes.
Councillor Wells.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next bylaw is 2020-33, waste collection update for May 2021.
Moved by Councillor Mellon, second by Councillor Wells, that bylaw number 2020-33 being a bylaw to rescind bylaw number 2013-05 and being a bylaw to provide for the collection, removal, and disposal of residential waste be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Danielle?
So again, this report in front of you this evening discusses what we discussed at the committee of the whole meeting on April 15th. What I did is I took all of your comments based on the bylaw that was presented and incorporated them into the document. So again, we talked about just some different things, rural collection, like we just discussed, one side of the road collection. I also made sure that we amended a farm schedule to the back of the bylaw, so that'll be added as well, so that if you have an additional bag request for any farm property, that'll be included. Some of the things that we will address further on is, for example, the Section 3 set fines. We did discuss that, so that has to actually go to the Attorney General Provincial Offences Act to be reviewed. So that's something that staff will be working on this year, and we will just amend the bylaw to incorporate Section 3 fines. One of the other things that we didn't incorporate, but we are putting on the unfinished business listing, is the White Elephant Day. So we did discuss putting that in the bylaw. However, in discussion with the clerk, we felt that it might just be better to have it as a whole separate event, and we can bring it back to council for discussion on dates and how we want that to look. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'd be willing to take them. Again, this bylaw would not be taking place, would not become applicable until May 2021. So we prepared this so that the new bidder for the curbside collection contract would know what type of service level we were looking for.
Okay, any further questions from council at this time? Council Mellon?
Thank you, Mayor Byvells. I agree with everything in here, Danielle, and I guess for my clarification, it doesn't come into effect till 2021. So I think one comment and then maybe a clarification, communication on this will be vital to make sure, but we have a year to make sure we get our message out. And in section 5.1, obligations of residents and IC and establishment for recycling. 5.1, every resident shall participate in the municipal recycling program. Maybe I'm heard too much legal wranglings over the years, but the shall not mean it's mandatory. Should it not read should? Because it's not mandatory that they participate, unless I'm wrong, in our recycling program.
That's correct. So I didn't actually change the wording on that section. So that section is original to the original bylaw passed in 2015. So I can change that to say should, but we don't enforce it. We could make recycling mandatory if that's what council would like to do, but that was not the objective of this bylaw.
No, I don't think it should be mandatory at the time. I mean, Deputy Mayor Gardner has alluded to that, we need to get our residents, in doing more recycling and the whole bit. And I agree with that. I just wondered if with that wording shall in there, if that implies too much, but I guess there's really no need to take it out or change it because we're not going to enforce it as make them like, unless you recycle. I know in some areas, if you don't put your recycle out, they don't pick your garbage up. So we're not in that point yet, but I guess there's really nothing, it could be left in there instead of rewording it.
Does anybody else want to take the shall out? I'm not going to recommend it. Okay, well, I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Mellon, but shall was there, and I think shall should stay there. I think that's something that we need to continue doing. As much as it does cost us money, it is saving resources in the big scheme of things from just taking it and putting it in landfill and also taking up space there. So I do have a question concerning dwelling units and how that works with campsites and seasonal campsites. In the past, we weren't picking up at a certain seasonal campsite, and then all of a sudden it happened in the last number of years. So just wondering if we should be continuing that or where they work in the definition, because I know they not be the only seasonal campsite in the township or in the municipality of South Dundas.
So they aren't defined. So seasonal campgrounds aren't defined in our existing bylaw, and they aren't defined in the new bylaw. How I would look at them as part of this bylaw would be part of an IC&I, so a small commercial business, just like any other commercial business. So I would, in my opinion, they would be falling under the IC&I because they would make money from their campsite. Most campsites in South Dundas have private waste removal, and that's because it's very hard for them to stick to the bylaw. So IC&I in the new bylaw is only allowed to have 2 bags. So it would be a real hard stretch for them to meet that. But again, I'll leave that up to council to discuss, but they are not defined in the existing bylaw, and they're not defined in the new bylaw as a separate entity from anything else.
Any comments from council on this?
Mayor Byvelds?
You wish. Okay. Council Mellon.
As much as campsites, a lot of garbage comes out of those campsites, and I think you're trying to say is, I think it should be up to the campsite to deal with the overflow, I guess, if you will, of garbage and have their garbage collected by a private contractor. Otherwise, those campsites, the owner of the campsites pays a tax base, but he's renting those units out or those sites out. So I think there should be something in there, whether to cover for campgrounds that put a lot of garbage out that's going to be collected.
Mayor Gardner.
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. I think that's a good suggestion, Mayor Byvelds. I think we need to separate the campgrounds, and one example of why I believe that is if they're required, any campground I've ever worked at has always had a dumpster service, but to keep the cost down on the dumpster, they have articles or items that are unique to campgrounds. So whether it's the little Coleman tanks that they will encourage to recycle or what have you, they usually set up some pretty decent recycling programs to get that stuff out of the landfill. And I think if we just continue collecting the garbage, then there's not really any reason to make sure that some of that stuff stays out of the landfill. So I think it should be treated like a business.
Councilor Lewis, any comments?
No, I agree with my colleagues. I think it should stay as a business because as Councillor Mellon said, there is a pile of garbage that comes out of campsites. So I think we should just leave it a private business of their own and leave them deal with their own garbage, and we'll deal with ours. Thank you.
Councilor Wells?
No, I agree with my colleagues also. I'm good with the bylaw.
Okay. So just to stipulate, like campsites include seasonal trailers, correct?
If that would be any campground, any seasonal campground would fall under IC&I. So that would be my interpretation. But if you wanted to clarify it in the bylaw, we.
No. I think as long as it's not there and council is comfortable with the way it's written, then the understanding is it's not part of it. So anything further from anybody from council? Seeing none, I'll call the vote, please.
Mayor Byveld?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes.
Councillor Mellon?
Sorry, yes?
Councillor Wells?
Yes.
Motion passes. The next one is a consent agenda, please.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Councillor Mellon, that all items listed under general consent section of the agenda be adopted as presented, save and except for item 8A, be moved to discussion items.
Okay, and tonight we have under B, sorry, feedback. Pre-construction has their startup notice for County Road 31 Flag Road construction, and we have a key information report of that budget to actual for council and the public. Call vote, please.
Mayor Byveld?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis?
Yes.
Councillor Mellon?
Yes.
Councillor Wells?
Yes.
Motion passes. We're moving on to 9. First part of 9 is 9 is boards, committees, and discussion items. Council reps. The county council happened today, so I'll call on Deputy Mayor Gardner, please.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Byveld. Just some highlights. We came to an agreement with Dundas Manor. So that, in these uncertain times, I think it absolutely highlights how important that new facility will be for the residents of Dundas County. We did have a discussion about moving the county tax deadline, and it was agreed to move it until the end of June. And we had a fulsome update on operations. Obviously, I'm speaking the obvious, but it's not business as usual. So we did go through that. I don't know, I might have missed. What else, Mayor, did I?
I think that was the key highlights that we went through today. We had a few other agreements, but nothing of consequence in South Dundas. And the only major road extra we did today was additional microservicing from the west side of the village of Long Sioux to the east side of the village of Ingleside. We're not doing any crack sealing this year because of the high cost of it, but this was a good alternative for that stretch of road, and council have concurred on that. So, but there was no further discussion on doing any extra work, especially not knowing what certainty of the financial situation of the county will be down the road. Are there any questions for Deputy Mayor or myself from County Council? Yes, Councilor Mellon.
The tax deadline, the county tax deadline is extended to what's the date, Deputy Mayor Gardner?
June 30th.
June 30th, okay. Now, we have already, I guess, from the municipal perspective, we submitted our, we don't have to submit the county portion until June 30th.
No, we have a payment at the end of this month, Councilor Mellon, that corresponds with our own deadline, and then the next one will be the end of June instead of the end of May. And then there's further ones at the end of August and the end of October. Those are still in the bylaw as passed today, and I'm sure the treasurer will talk about it when we go into our discussion on our own tax bylaw. But county councils passed the bylaw today, keeping in mind that we may have to move those dates. The challenge at the county level is that there's a lot of construction commitments that have already been made, and they're significant. So we'll have to keep everything in mind as everything evolves going further down the road here.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Cemetery Board, anything, Council Wells?
No meetings, Mayor Byville.
Thank you. I don't expect there's going to be a lot of meetings. The Iroquois District Business Group did not meet. The BIA did not meet.
It did not meet.
I hate to say this, but South Nation Conservation.
Yes, we did meet, Mr. Byvels, or Mr. Mayor. Last Thursday, there was a teleconference meeting that took place. It was, it's not near as efficient as a video conference that we're doing here now, but we got through it. It wasn't a real long meeting. We had to amend their bylaw, I guess, to allow that to happen. They gave us an update on some of their meetings and the communication they've had and the workings. Most of the staff are working from home that can work from home. They're trying to do things, I guess, as best they can, the same as everybody. They're still doing some essential services. Water control, dams, weirs, septic program is costing more and is taking longer because they're practicing social distancing, and a lot of times there's one person in a vehicle, and but they're you know, there's a bunch of South Nation parks and whatnot, properties that are open and some that are closed. We have two in South Dundas that are open for passive recreation, I guess walking. As of yet, the two creeks and Robert Graham are both open. So hopefully they'll continue to be open. About half of them were closed down. None of their play structures or park areas or boat launch areas are open to the public. The permitting as far as minor variances or stormwater management, anything like that, I asked it to make sure that paperwork is done up so that when and hopefully if this is all blows by, that their paperwork is going to be done and it'll be forwarded back to the municipalities so that any permitting will be done in a timely manner. They assured me that they are working on this. And I guess the one thing that they did do was the operational funding that comes from the province, the Minister of Natural Resource and Forestry. They did get the word that they're going to remain the same amount of money at about 90,000. It was cut in half in 2019, and they were informed that they're going to receive about the same amount as 2019. The tree planting program, I sent an email around to, I just got it late this afternoon. They're going to be doing some tree planting. That's going to go ahead. It's been, I guess, researched by South Nation staff, and they reached out to different authorities that it is an essential service, I guess. So they're going ahead with the tree planting program. They were running into a situation where they get their trees in Kempville there at Ferguson's. They had to, I guess, if you will, move on them because you want to get them planted in late April, early May. And the tree giveaway program that was a real success last year, they're looking at, I guess, the logistics of trying to do that again this year. It was brought up by the director. Social distancing and whatnot. They're working with that, trying to figure out a way if they can still do that, they'll be reaching out to municipal staff and see if there's some way that that can be still continued. If they don't take the trees, of course, spring is the time to plant them. So that's still a work in progress. The AGM, of course, it was canceled in March. Still hasn't happened, and it's sort of a floating date right now. The minister gave them a permission to not have to have the AGM till the emergency order is lifted and we can meet in public and more than 5 people. I'll keep you posted when the AGM will happen. As of right now, there's no firm date. I doubt it if it'll be May, but we'll see. That's sort of the nuts and the bolts of it. It was 3-hour teleconference and a little hard to navigate through a teleconference for 3 hours. So any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Any questions or comments for Councillor Mellon? Just a comment for myself. I appreciate you did that teleconference. I imagine it's a challenge. Been through them myself. You still are operating 2 creeks down here, and I'm going to be specific here because I can see what's going on, and I do see people using it. The only challenge I see that could be fixed is that it's got about a kilometer trail or a half-kilometer trail going in, and then it splits, and you can go either left or right, directional wise. Perhaps to enhance physical distancing, they make that single direction instead of those can choose either go counterclockwise or clockwise. I'll leave it up to you and South Nation to think about that one. It's a fairly narrow trail. There's no way you're going to do physical distancing as you do your turnaround. So
that's a good point, Mayor Byvelds. I have partly walked it for an opening ahead there. Yes, so that's a good point. I mean, I guess if the direction is one way, then I think they put the signage out. They had examples of the signage, and they were putting out at the trails that were open and the signage at the trails that were closed. I'll reach out tomorrow to South Nation and make that suggestion.
Yeah, because I think the Ontario government really. The orders are for parks and what like, but they want to keep the trails open. However, in the end, the trails have to have enough room for physical distancing, and those trails are extremely narrow. I've walked them in the winter. I will not do that in the summer because of the ticks, but and the hip waders you need in some of the corners. But other than that, that's just a suggestion for those who do use it. We do need to get out, and I'm going to be honest. You think the roads are less traveled until you get on a Sunday afternoon on Lakeshore Drive.
I'll take it, Mayor Byvelds. We'll follow up.
Okay, thank you. So no Morrisburg Waterfront Committee, no Iroquois Waterfront Committee. I assume no South Branch, correct?
No.
Okay, no Carmen House.
No.
No Archives, Tourism Committee, Economic Development Committee, no, and Doctor Advisory, no. Okay, well, we all know why, and hopefully whenever we get this all done, we'll get things rolling again. Okay, so we have a key information report supporting local South Dundas business media campaign. Is Rob on tonight? No.
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I put together this key information report for Council to inform Council on a measure that we're doing to support our local small business community. Given the COVID-19 pandemic, it's quite unprecedented with the business closures and businesses needing to adapt and change the way that they do business, whether it be curbside pickup, and doing orders that way, or some stores that are essential, doing the social distancing measures to ensure the health of their patrons, or restaurants doing takeout or delivery type services and that. So I'm pleased to let Council know that we did sponsor a media ad buy in the Morrisburg Leader. It'll be in this Wednesday We were able to fill 4 pages. Originally, we were thinking probably 2, but the response was overwhelming. So we were able to fill 4 pages. I spoke with Nick at the counties, and Nick has been able to offer some support to us in the amount of $1,500 to help offset that cost. So the net cost of the municipality for this 4-page in the leader is going to be $2,500. I think it's money well spent. People will be encouraged. There's going to be a banner at the top of each page encouraging people to save those pages as reference. So anytime that they need a service or they need something from a store, they can look up the ads. We're going to have the pages produced so that we can publish them on our website, on our social media website. The leader is going to post them on their website and also their social media. This ad buy kind of came about. I was speaking with the deputy mayor, and this was an idea that that got generated, that we could something that we could do on behalf of our small businesses in our community. I'd like to thank the deputy mayor for her help. I'd like to thank Sam Lauren at the Morrisburg Leader. He's been wonderful to deal with. It's amazing, the response from our business community. I want to thank the businesses. I also want to thank Kaylin, our communications coordinator, who certainly helped us with some messaging. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Gardner, comments?
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. Thank you to Rob for putting in some hard work on. We just based on the uptake, I mean, 4 solid pages. I feel like the small businesses in South Dundas, didn't really have a way to make sure to get folks that weren't on social media. And just based on the response and the messages that they put in their own little ad space, goes to show that we work better together than any other way. So yes, it was great. And again, thanks to Rob. He did a lot of legwork and it was good. I'm excited for Wednesday. It'll be nice to see it in print.
Okay, any comments from council? I'll start with Council Lewis.
No, I tip my hat to CEO Rob. You never cease to amaze me. You work hard, and it looks like this accomplishment is definitely gone over the top. And it'd be fantastic to get the Morrisburg Leader on Wednesday. And I tip my hat to the Morrisburg Leader people also. Thank you.
Council Mellon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Byvelds. I want to thank Rob, Deputy Mayor Gardner, yourself, Mayor Byvelds. This is a great initiative. It is a great idea. I want to thank Mayor Byvelds for reaching out to Councillor Wells and myself to forward any businesses or what that might be back in the north end of the municipality that we wanted included. And I think it's wonderful. It's really a inexpensive and I think meaningful way for council to try and help and make sure our businesses are not forgotten during these troubled times.
Council Wells.
Yes, I agree with all the comments from my colleagues, and just extend out, Rob, like you're doing a great job, and this is just another chapter in your workbook. Great job, and this will definitely help. And like everyone else, I'm looking forward to seeing the paper on Wednesday. And kudos out to everyone. Thank you.
I'd like to thank certainly Deputy Mayor Gardner and Rob for all their work, and Kaylin in the background and getting these pages done. I've seen the copies of them, and they look good. They're going to outstanding. I think it's going to be an opportunity for those businesses who have committed to it and at no cost to them, show off what they're still doing in South Dundas, because it's going to be challenging. I know if I run a business now that I still have an opportunity to do the work, and if I was a business where the door was shut and all I can do is a little bit and hope for the best. I think the hope for the best is a lot of hope. So hopefully the residents of South Dundas recognize this. I think we're certainly doing more shopping at home now than we used to in the past, and it's probably showing in inventories and grocery stores and whatnot. But I was spurred on by an email from a local business owner that seen it in North Dundas and elsewhere, and I thought, here's an opportunity. We got, making a call, Deputy Mayor Gardner, and going through Rob. We did something that was certainly a little more unique with going with print, but print still goes a long way in South Dundas. I think over half our residents still recognize that print is still a very viable media to get your word out. So well, I think we're all looking forward to the paper on Wednesday, and we certainly hope that it creates some successful business in our municipality. Anything further? Okay, thanks a lot, Rob. With this, the next report is one that I'm declaring conflict on, so I will mute my mic and turn everything off. Send it over to Deputy Mayor.
Okay, Mayor Byveld is gone. Okay, Madam Clerk. So the next thing up for discussion, I guess it's Sean that's going to present the background.
Yes.
Sean?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. A bylaw to assess out the costs on the TA Weaver drain was included on the April 6th council agenda. Prior to the meeting, the clerk received a letter from a property owner located in the watershed, and the bylaw was removed prior to the meeting. The property owner suspected that there was an error in the roll numbers presented in the bylaw. Staff reviewed the spreadsheet and found that the roll numbers had in fact been duplicated in error. However, in researching the error, staff discovered that the properties in question had been subject to a severance and subsequently a consolidation of properties. In mentioning this to the property owner, they indicated that adjusting the areas included in the watershed would not be necessary, given there would be an associated cost with the drainage engineer. The ultimate effect is that if the properties are left as is, the assessment schedule is incorrect. I'm looking for direction from council to invoice as is, or to send the information to the drainage engineer for a proper apportionment. It's kind of it would be in the neighborhood of about probably $300 to $500 cost from the drainage engineer. The issue would be in the future that if the property owner had ever decided to sell the property, that the information included within the drainage bylaw would be incorrect. Second concern addressed in the letter was that the TA Weaver drain was not included on the agricultural drainage infrastructure grant application filed. Staff is not aware as to why the TA Weaver drain was absent from the 2012 grant application. Potential grant subject to approve, which would have been subject to approval by OMAFRA, would have been in the neighborhood of $644. $642. Staff would like direction from council as to how to proceed, either without any consideration of the missing grant, or if an amount is to be credited prior to the bylaw being brought back to council. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, we'll start with Councillor Well. So there is a letter. I guess people can see that it's after Sean's report. The letter is there. Councillor Wells.
I read the letter and everything. I think the bylaw should be changed, and like no one should have to pay more than they're supposed to, even though it's a small amount. So I would direct staff to go ahead and hire an engineer to get this rectified, that it's, when it comes up again, that it's going to be properly, instead of just letting it go. Councillor Mellon can probably ease more on the drain things, but as far as I'm concerned, I fully believe no one should pay what they don't have to pay. But, and again, I don't know how, like back in 2012, how it got missed that it wasn't put in for a grant. But obviously, it is what it is, so we can't change that. But we can change as far as giving back to who's being overcharged if it was charged double. So if he's in the thing twice, I agree it should be changed.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wells. Okay, Councillor Mellon, our drain expert at the table. What's your input?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Gardner, Deputy Mayor Gardner. I'm not exactly sure how I should, but yes, I mean, I agree with Councillor Wells. I mean, for us not to get the proper assessment done now, I mean, it's just, we're just shirking our duty. I mean, we got to get it done. It should be done properly to make sure that everybody that's being assessed is assessed properly and fairly. So I mean, I would send it off to get it. You know, it's $300 to $500. I think, Sean, you said. It's. I think it needs to be. That needs to be fixed up and needs to be corrected. And as far as the grant money goes, the only fair thing to do, and I totally agree with the letter writer that this, you know, I know I would be in the same boat if, you know, you apply for a maintenance on a grant, you're depending on the municipality and the staff to do the proper paperwork to get you your funding from OMAFRA. So we've already ate some drainage grant money that wasn't properly done. And I would suggest we do the same with this one.
Thanks, Councillor Mellon. Councillor Lewis.
Yeah, that's me.
I did think.
I agree with my colleagues across the table from me. I think that this should go back to the engineers because down the road, if it happens again, we're in the same kerfuffle. And I don't think as a municipality, we want to do that. I do believe that it should be straightened out ASAP. A question for you, Sean, because this is a fairly new thing for me, drainage. Is every maintenance, is there an ADIP handed in, an application?
Yes, Councillor Lewis, when the maintenance work is done on a municipal drain the following year, April of the following year, the project is listed on the ADIP application grant form, and pending OMAFRA approval, the municipality would receive the monies and pass it on to the agricultural property owner.
Thank you very much. And I don't really think that we should be penalizing the landowner because an application was not handed in. I feel that that is definitely not going down the right path. So I would suggest that the municipality of South Dundas pays that $642, and hopefully the landowner is happy and the municipality is happy. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gardner.
Thanks, Councillor Lewis. Okay, so Sean, looks like we want to spend the $300 to $600 and fix the situation. And then it also looks like we do not want to penalize the landowner for that missing ADIP grant. So it looks like we will absorb that. Does that sound right, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Yeah, I think Sean was just looking for direction on this. So when the bylaw comes back, it'll be reflected in the bylaw.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We got a Continue.
Waiting for the mayor to come back?
Oh,
I texted him.
Okay. Good. For a minute there, I was like, oh.
He's back. Thank you.
There he is.
Okay, so we'll move on to key information report on finance update and final tax billing. Sarah?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The report I provide you with is to update Council on some of the decisions that have been made in regards to MPAC assessments and appeals, school board and county remittance, on decisions that have been made on a municipal level in regards to finance. And I can answer any questions Council has on these topics. The main purpose of this report is to have a discussion with Council as to how we are to proceed with our final tax billing. So the plan right now is to do our regularly scheduled billing at the beginning of June. Tax bills are sent out in the first week. I'd like some input from Council for installment due dates. In the past, our due dates are the last business day of June and September. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, I've provided Council with two options for deferring the installment due dates. So the first being deferring each installment 1 month, or the second option is to defer the June installment 2 months and the September installment 1 month. These are the options I'm comfortable presenting Council with at this time. We're trying to provide the relief to the greatest number of people while being mindful of the fact that the municipality still has to provide services to our residents and that those services cost money. One of our biggest flows of cash are the levy payments to the counties. Deferring our installment dates with any of the options I've provided still align us with those due dates and put us in a position to be able to make those remittances. Looking for input from Council at this time.
Okay, we'll start with Deputy Mayor Gardner, please.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, we had a lengthy conversation, as I mentioned, at counties today. There is going to be a lot of pain out there as people get back on track. If it's not going to have a negative impact, so you've said that both suggestions for the final tax billing 1 and 2, there would be no negative impact to the municipality? In the sense that it wouldn't put us in a bad spot for the final tax billing?
At this time, we do have a strong cash flow position, so I don't foresee that putting us into any negative position.
In my mind, then, if we are able to do the second one, only because I was listening to the Premier today, and when they do roll things to try and get things back to normal, whatever that looks like, they will do it very gradually. So I don't think it's going to be a case where everything is open for business the next day. So I think we need to do a bit more of a gradual rollout, but I'm okay with either one, but if we can do 2, then I'm okay with that.
Councillor Lewis, please.
I agree with Deputy Mayor Gardner. I don't think this COVID is going to be done overnight, and I know there is families out there that are hurting right now. So I would like to see option number 2 go into place. It relieves a little bit of the pressure, and as you say, we have a good cash flow as of right now. So yeah, I would definitely go for number 2. Thank you.
Councillor Mellon, please.
Yes, I got to agree with my colleagues. When I looked at these 2 options, I was sort of hoping, Sarah, that we were able to afford option 2, if you will. And I think it'll give the best relief that we can do for the residents out there if we defer the first one 2 months and the second one 1 month. So option 2.
Councillor Wells.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I have no issue with number 2. One question though, Sarah, how is this going to reflect to, I don't know how many are on a monthly payment? Like, would you give them the option, or do you just keep taking out unless they reach out, ask you to defer 2 months payment? Because I know my commercial part for my taxes and my residential, I'm all by the month. So if I don't call you, does the municipality just continue taking out the monthly payments? And if they do, as a taxpayer myself, I can just say, continue taking my monthly payment, so it doesn't all come out at once, type of thing.
So what we've been doing right now is, can you mute, please, Lloyd? So we've been taking out the monthly installments as planned. We have had 2 requests from payers to defer it. So what we've done is we've deferred their payments 1 month, and that has gone over well. I guess the idea behind that is that we don't want them to get too far behind. So we are continuing with the monthly pre-authorized, and then due date would be taken out on the installment due date.
Okay, that's good with me, and I'm good with option 2.
Okay, I agree with the option 2. However, I'd like to throw a few other things on the table here, because I've had one phone call and we've had an email today concerning 2 things. First is a challenge that I had that somebody has lost a part-time job and doesn't really qualify for the federal benefits, is being challenged with their tax payment, and they do have some money to start it, but they don't have enough to keep everything rolling. I'd like to see, if possible, that staff be given some flexibility to work with people that are challenged and can somewhat verify it, because you have to take their word for it, but even the federal government is looking for verification of challenges. And the other one we have is businesses, and they be our CTs for the most part. Some of them have 0 income right now, and kind of hard to pay a property tax bill when you have 0 income. And I'm sure some of them will still survive, but some will not. And that's just the reality of how everything's going to go here, and we know that. It's unfortunate, but are there any options we should look at on those 2 fronts? Another front we could look at and would be either interest deferral, which sometimes leads to basically, if it doesn't cost me anything, I won't pay it to the end of the year, which I don't believe is right. But perhaps an adjustment to our interest rates for this year, instead of being at their 1.5% per month compounded every month, to something a little bit more realistic in this day and age with low interest rates, cutting it back down to a simple 5% annual rate. So I know there's no research on those things, but those are things I think this council could at least have staff look at going forward, and maybe see where we go. Sarah?
So the municipality's ability to provide tax relief is limited by the Municipal Act. And then there's also bonusing rules that limit our ability to provide support to businesses. So the industrial and commercial properties, there's not a lot of flexibility within the Act to provide tax relief to them. So our options for those situations would be interest, like waiving interest, deferrals, that kind of thing. For residential, there is options in the Municipal Act under Section 357 for extreme poverty and sickness. They can make an application under that. And then also under Section 365, we have options to pass a bylaw to cancel or reduce or refund some of the taxes levied to our ratepayers. So those are kind of our options. We are limited, though, under what we can do under the Municipal Act.
Okay, and thanks for that information, Sarah, because I know there's always caveats to ideas, and they do make logical sense. So it seems like we're either into the interest defer or interest reduction on that, or every resident, and then we can go from there. So we'll go back around the table backwards. Councillor Wells?
Yes, like we all know the situation. Every municipality's in it. The government right now is offering, the federal is offering assistance as far as a $40,000 interest-free loan for 2 years with a $10,000 forgiveness. So in our municipality, because the criteria for the payroll started at 50,000 up to 1 million. Now it's down to 20,000 of 2019 payroll up to 1.5 million right now. Like I said, I would have no issue doing the interest thing. And like you brought to our attention, sir, as far as industrial and commercial stuff goes, we can't overstep the municipal acts. So unfortunately, we just got to hope everything starts getting back to normal here in the next couple months. And if we can defer some interest to help out the local businesses, I'm good with that. But like I said, our hands are pretty much tied to like just giving taxes back or whatever. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon?
Yeah, I guess in response to Councilor Wells, that in the program, that 40,000, it works all right, but if any business is incorporated and they pay out in a dividend form instead of a salary back to themselves, they don't qualify for that 40,000. I think the last teleconference I listened to with Eric and Jim, our MP and MPP, they were working on something about that would also include dividends paid back in lieu of a wage, I guess, if you will. But right now, businesses aren't qualified for that if they are incorporated and they take a dividend instead of a salary. I have no problem in trying to do something, definitely do something. Sarah, so we can't, let me get this straight. We can't lower our interest rate. Like I could see that if you were trying to attract a new business under the, bonusing under the municipal act, but if we wanted to charge whatever we want to charge as far interest, can we not do that?
I'm not too sure about the constraints of the municipal act in regards to interest. What I was speaking to before was just reducing the taxes for a business. We can't provide any relief that way to businesses. But I have to do some more research into the municipal act for the interest rate if we wanted to go that route of reducing it.
Theo Garrity?
I think to add on to what Sarah just indicated, some municipalities are waiving their interest completely. I know up in the Toronto area and stuff, they're waiving their tax interest completely. So they're absorbing that. They're not collecting that interest as a revenue. So that's one way that they're getting around the municipal act, because it is a requirement under the act that you have to charge 1.25%. But the way around that is by the municipality reducing their revenues by not collecting that interest.
Okay, thank you, Shannon and Sarah. I'm going to leave it to you number crunchers, figure out a way to try and make something happen. I'm not sure what the best approach is, but I do agree with Mayor Byvelds that there's going to be a lot of hurting out there in a few months. I don't know what we can do, but let's try and do something.
Councilor Lewis?
I think that we have to do what we can for our residents of South Dundas. So we have to get rid of the interest. If that works for me. But I know that we have a good staff that can figure that out, and I'll be happy with whatever decision that comes from the staff level, because I know you people work hard every day. Thank you.
Mayor Gardner, please.
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. I absolutely would like to see a presentation of what we can possibly do. I can't imagine being a business owner and actually, I can't imagine trucking along and everything's going to be great. And then boom, you're declared a non-essential service. Your doors are shut. You're not getting any income. Your business is just frozen. I can't imagine the amount of pressure that's associated with that. And if there is anything at all that we can do, I think that in these unprecedented times, I don't think there's any way we can justify it not at least trying. Thank you.
Okay, so sounds like council would like to hear a little bit more on what we can do with interest rates. Perhaps that's a report for our next meeting, please. I think the dates that you've chosen under option 2 have been certainly supported by council. I think they work well with what the province has done and what the counties have done today too. So we're doing our best. I do have some challenges with the interest and deferring it, because that might put us in a bind if everybody decides not to pay, and that is a possibility. I know if I was somebody that even if I had the money, I would not pay till whenever I had to pay. That's just the nature of the way some people work, and that would be their legal right if that's the way we go. So I think we need to get a little more insight into what we can and cannot do, and then the implications, and then we can make a decision on that next meeting. Is that okay with council? Staff, good with that?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Rito St. Lawrence, they sent us a letter today, and part of it was an interest deferral. Who's going to take this one on? Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I had a conversation with John Walsh, the CEO from RSL, last week. Initiative that they're doing on their side is they're waiving late payment charges for the electricity portion. As council is aware, we contract our billing and collecting of water and sewer to RSL. They have gotten some inquiries from the shareholders across Westport, Prescott, all the other areas that are in the RSL catchment area, looking to see if municipalities would do the same as far as waiving late payments for water and sewer. So just wanted to throw it out there to council that there's another option to help our residents and our businesses as far as waiving late payments for water and sewer, and looking for some direction from council.
Okay, Mayor Gardner, start.
So Shannon, is this the common practice? Like you mentioned that some of is this common to waive have other municipalities done that? I'm not generally speaking a sheep, but I just want to see what the flavor is out there for water. I've never heard of it for water, and actually I've never heard of any of this stuff, but
I think, we're down kind of a way where we're not this is not a normal thing as far as the pandemic occurring. So there's no playbook as far as what you should and should not do. I know they have reached out to Westport. I believe they agreed to waiving their late payment charges. I haven't heard back from the other municipalities yet as far as what they're doing. But RSL wanted us to reach out to every shareholder to see what their thoughts are in regards to this initiative.
yeah, I mean, I like I said before, I mean, I think as leaders, we have to do whatever we can, and I'm okay with waiving it.
Councilor Lewis.
I don't have a problem waiving it, but I would like to see what everybody else is doing also. And that would most likely make my final decision. I know we have to do what we have to do, but business is business also. So I would like to see what everybody else is doing, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Councilor Mellon.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds. What is the late, so what some of them are doing is waiving the late charge, the late payment charge. What is that, Shannon? How much would that like be?
I don't have a number as far as the software that RSL uses. It's a different kind of software that doesn't allow a lot of flexibility. So when they're waiving electricity currently right now, they have to waive everything, including water and sewer, and then put it back in. The system's is not the greatest, I don't think. So I don't have a number as far as what the implications are from a water and sewer perspective when it comes to late payment. But if council wants to defer this to the next meeting, as per Councillor Lewis, I can find out what municipalities want to go down this road and maybe get some more financial implications on what that looks like for us.
Okay. When is the billing, what's the billing cycle? When is the next billing due, I guess?
So residential or monthly?
Monthly, so first to the end of the month. I guess, yeah, I could waive the late payment charge. I guess I don't know, I think you got to put a timeline on it too. It'll have to be built into that, but I could wait until defer it to see, get a little more information what that would be cost wise and whatnot. But yeah, I think we need to look at this and look at it seriously. And I think ASAP, because if it's due the end of the month, then obviously, or is it the end of the first or end of the month or the first of the month?
It would probably be billed out at the end of the month and due middle of the following month.
Okay. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to collect up April in there as far as if we're going to act on it, but we might not be able to act that quickly anyway. So yeah, bring us some more information, and I think we need to, obviously, I think we need to waive it, the late charge, interest charge or penalty, I guess, if you will.
Okay.
Councilor Wells?
Question, Shannon. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like even like as a municipality, we're obviously a shareholder. Wouldn't this have to be brought to all shareholders of RSL? Like as South Dundas, we couldn't make that decision. It would have to come to a vote of all shareholders on whether the late payment's going to be canceled for. Like I said there, I do agree, like some relief or whatever, but at the end of the day, it comes down to all shareholders, and it is voted 51% says we continue, it continues, correct?
My understanding to John Walsh was they had a meeting last week to approve the electricity side to the shareholders. But what was determined was that they surveyed the municipalities within the RSL catchment area to see what their thoughts would be on waiving water and sewer. But you're right, it has to go to the majority of the shareholders. So everybody's got to do it or it won't happen.
My personal thing, I'm good with eliminating or cutting it, whatever. But and again, it'll come obviously come to a vote.
Okay, it sounds like majority council would like to defer the interest, so I guess that would be direction. Councilor Lewis, you were the one that wanted to wait.
Yes, and to answer Councillor Mellon's on hydro billing, I know in Morrisburg, we get ours the last week of the month, and it is to be paid by the 15th of the following month. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a flavor for deferral, so that'll be, I guess, the direction of the council right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next key information report is one on a COVID-19 staff update. So leave it up to the CAO, please.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. So this is just a little bit of information and wanted to share with Council in regards to how we're working right now from a staff perspective. We continue to operate not only in the office or out in the in public works or recreation, but some are working remotely at home. I just wanted to just share with council that we're trying to get people back as quickly as we can, full time, but keeping in mind that we want to keep our staff safe as much as we can. So as I indicated in the report, public work is started back full time this week. And we're looking at progressing recreation and water and wastewater back in the next couple of weeks using PPE, as well as using other vehicles in other departments, as well as their personal vehicles for mileage and stuff. So I guess at this time, I'll just open up if council has any questions or comments, and I'll be able to answer those.
Okay, Councilor Wells, start.
No, I read your report, Shannon. I agree with trying to, like, as long as everything's safe, get everyone back to work. I even believe, like, as far as the workers go, I know myself, I wouldn't want to be sitting at home. I want to be out trying to do something anyway. So, no, I have no issue with this as long as everything maintains safe. So, good.
Councilor Mellon.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Byvelds. Yeah, your report's very good, Shannon. And at the last council meeting, it was sort of touched on before. We could have savings in our summer student program. I think since that time, the government announced, and I do believe municipalities, and maybe if somebody had more insight than I have, correct me, but that municipalities would be eligible for 100% grant towards summer students. I know at our South Nation meeting that was discussed, but the problem then arises how we deal with summer students. Is it feasible? If we can get summer students and we can get 100% grant money from the government, I think we need to look into that. But we also have to protect our employees, our current employees, and any summer students. And when, how we would train them, because obviously summer students would need supervision and maybe some guidance and whatnot, so it would be difficult. The staff, or do you have any idea if and how we could handle that if that does become an issue? If this, if the state of emergency drags into the summer, it may not even be worthwhile for us to be even getting summer students, even if we could get grant money to get them for 100% of their salary. But these are some of the points I got running through my head, so I don't know if you can help me out at all, Shannon, or not.
So we have had a little bit of discussion at our senior management level as far as summer students. We've kind of already gone through the recruitment part of their summer students, and our students have been told that due to the pandemic that we're currently not hiring. Meanwhile, though, we're still trying to keep in line with, there might be some opportunity to hire some students that could do some of the outside work when it comes to, doing some weed whacking and stuff like that. We're unsure when it comes to our lifeguards and to our campgrounds and that stuff. But if there's an opportunity that we can, utilize some of our students, we definitely will look at doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, even if we can utilize a few of the summer students, and we can maybe share them between rec and public works, as long as it can be done safely. My assumption or my understanding is the government will fund 100% to municipalities for summer students. Is that what I've read? Is that correct?
So my understanding of it is it's municipalities that applied under the Canada Summers Job program, which we normally do for lifeguards, but due to the fact that we didn't have enough lifeguards this year, we did not apply for it. But that being said, the conference call I was on this morning with the MP and MPP indicated that they're looking at that a little closer, and if we can utilize students, there might be an opportunity for us to get back into that program.
I guess we'll go with the flow and work the best we can. Thank you.
Councilor Lewis, please.
No, I have no questions. Just as long as Shannon, it would be nice to have all employees back, but you know, we got to do it step by step. It's got to be safe for everybody. We definitely don't want anybody to get this COVID. So I know you guys will do it right.
Mayor Gardner, please.
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Appreciate the depth of the report. I know it's trying times and it's hard to stay connected to staff and all this fun stuff. And I'm sure they're eager to come back. And I think I appreciate the update. And I think as with all elements of this COVID-19, I guess we just keep getting updated until something changes. Thanks.
And I concur with council. It's certainly interesting times, and we've had discussions at our emergency management level of staffing and how to deal with it and make sure they're all safe and still getting the work done that we need in municipality. I know that transportation is going full bore this week, and that's good. We're probably going to be challenged in the rec side and facilities on how we're going to deal with all that, but we certainly need to keep them all as busy as possible, as safe as possible. With the student issue, I sympathize with the students, but our challenge is we got to make sure we have enough work for the full-time staff we already have on hand. They can do some of that student work if need be, if they run out of work and if we don't open up. We still have to maintain our parks. So all that stuff still the grass needs to be cutting, the trees need to be trimming, all that stuff still got to be done. The roads got to be maintained. There might be a possibility someday somewhere down the road where we could hire one or two, whatever number of students we need to do the work. But as Councilor Mellon has alluded to, your biggest challenge is how you're going to safely train them to do their job. And if safety is going to be an issue, then that will, that's going to be just double jeopardy here. Why would we risk the life of the student and ourselves? So I think we'll just keep that in mind. If this, it seems like things are easing, but that's just about the time when you shouldn't take your foot off the gas all that hard. And hopefully we can work through our next 2 months. And if Shannon needs to come back and the directors need to come back with a new plan, then we're always going to be open for it. Anything further? Seeing none, thank you very much. So the next one is the key information report on Ontario Street reconstruction. So I will stay within the key information report till there's a decision made on the curling club request, and at that time I will not partake in the discussion and turn the meeting over. So we'll start with the first part and then move on. So, Shannon?
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. So this is just to give Council an update from our last meeting. As you all are aware, under COVID-19, the essential services were reduced to only allow major construction on roads, water, wastewater, hospitals. So what we are doing is proceeding with the Ontario Street project, but keeping in mind that we want to maintain the safety not only of the employees under Cornwall Gravel, but also our residents and our community. So we did have a pre-construction meeting back on April 9th. Outlined in the report is some information as far as start dates and what we're going to be doing from a correspondence to our residents. Crookshank Way will be reduced to a one-way traffic with yield to oncoming traffics. And then there'll be interruptions heading north block by block as they continue the work. So one question we did have as far as supplies, I did ask the question whether there'd be any delays in supplies or materials. They indicated that they had all their supplies and materials already ordered and that there should be no delays with that. So I guess on that first part, if council has any questions, I'll answer any questions.
On the first part, any questions, comments, concerns? Just put your hand up if you do. Yes, Deputy Mayor Mayor Gardner, go ahead.
Sorry, it's getting dark in this room. Just a quick question. When we're doing this, can we do some education about around this project and the fact that we are allowed to do it? Just folks, I know that the government has been fairly clear on the provincial government on what can be allowed, but I'm just the communication to our residents when we start putting shovels in the ground, can we just make sure that they're aware that it's well within our rights, or else you might be getting busy with phone calls?
So I did have that conversation with Kaylin today. We're drafting a letter. I know Cornwall Gravel is sending a letter to all the residents as far as the work, but I think we would do probably an extra letter that will go to our residents as far as that education piece that you're talking about.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, with that, there's a request from the curling club, and I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Gardner and mute myself off.
Okay. All right, folks. So everyone's seen the letter on page 170 about the additional request for parking.
So,
Shannon, do you want to go over it?
sure, if I can. Actually, I got some more information just before the meeting that I can share with council. So originally back last year, the Morrisburg Curling Club came to council looking for some support in regards to expanding their parking lot. From there, it's kind of gotten into a little bit more as far as the request. They are asking for the installation of a gutter curb from the yield sign on Annette Street to the Legion Street, as well as a storm sewer access to the building. So hearing from Mr. Locke this evening, he did indicate that the removal of the earth and the crushed stone would not be required because they're going to allow Cornwall Gravel's vehicles to stay on their parking lot, and in turn, Cornwall Gravel will do that at no charge. So the only thing that I'm looking for some direction from council tonight is if council is comfortable with the curb, as well as the storm sewer access, which I believe is part of the project anyways. So I don't see any additional cost for that at all. It'd be more just the gutter curb.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Councillor Wells?
I I would have no problem with the curb. Just refer back to you, Shannon, just to go and see what it would cost. I'm sure it's going to be next to nothing. And if Malin would have probably threw that curb into Cornwall Gravel, they probably would have did it anyways for them. So curb, and I have no issues with that.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, if that was my intention, was if council is, if the direction is to go down this road, is I would get a price based on these unit prices submitted, and then I would come back to council with a final kind of pricing so that council's aware of what the additional cost is to the project.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Mellon?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Gardner. Well, I'm glad to see they're getting their parking lot through Cornwall Gravel. As much as this may not go over well, we are at a time, I don't think that we can afford to do anything. We've already taken one lift asphalt off this road, and we've eliminated layside parking. I think that's the way it's referred to. I'm not in favor of South Dundas putting any money, unless it's a very, very reasonable amount of money, more into this. We have gone, this project is blowing this budget several times, and I just, as much as the curling club, they do a lot of great work and it's really well used. I just can't in all good faith think that, with the amount of work that we have put into trying to bring this budget or this project down in cost, that we can really afford to put any substantial amount of money extra into this. I look forward to some pricing, Shannon, for those two items that you're talking about. I would reach out to Cornwall Gravel and to the curling club as far as that goes to try and come up with something. But to me, for us to put money, when the rest of the residents on that street are only getting one lift of gravel, asphalt right now, my idea, yes, it was a cost-saving measure. We eliminated everything we could. So I can't see us putting extra into this.
Thanks, Councillor Mellon. Councillor Lewis?
I do believe that this is a tit for tat situation. Cornwall Gravel has said that they would do the parking lot. What I would like to see you do, Shannon, is find out what the price of, or what the price was to put the stone parking lot in, and then get the price of the curb. I don't think there's going to be much of a difference because it's not a long distance of cement. But I think it's just going to be a tit for tat. Instead of us paying for the stone and the cutting up the topsoil, I would most likely say the cement curb's going to come back. But that's what I'd like to see. Just see what the two prices are.
So Shannon, it sounds like the council's flavor is that we at least have a monetary figure for the discussion. To Councillor Mellon's point about us having to go through the exercise of trying to trim this project, but it is a sporting facility and we do need sporting facilities in our area. I don't know if the curling club is nonprofit, like would Cornwall Gravel be able to get a receipt if they donated the has that conversation come into play at all?
No, this information just came up just before the meeting tonight there, so I can definitely reach out to Cornwall Gravel and get pricing for the next meeting.
It seems like we need a price it seems like we need a price. So, okay, that sounds good. Anything else, council members? No, we're good? Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So we're down to 9H, which is a poll by Councillor Mellon concerning the South Dundas Regional Drinking Water Inspection Report. And then there were a few items that he took note of, and I think both council did. So I'll turn it over to Councillor Mellon. I know we have our supervisor here tonight to listen in and answer the questions. So go ahead, Councillor Mellon.
Thank you, Mayor Byvelds, and thank you, staff and Dennis, for the report. The report is very good. It's very thorough. It's very good. We passed with flying colors, and well, pretty well flying colors. And we had one non-compliance issue, which I think is a bookkeeping issue, and I think Dennis is probably going to have that already addressed. He can address that if he would like. But the other one that I took note of was with the I got to find my notes here. You'll have to give me a second, Mayor Byvelds. The
Page 71.
Yes, yeah, the 71. Thank you. Yeah, the mussel, the algae thing.
The harmful algae bloom.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Now there was it was a suggestion, I guess, or a guidance, before. And if I'm reading this right, Dennis, that's going to be a requirement on our next inspection?
Sorry, I keep on disconnecting on you guys, buffering.
Oh, well, the algae bloom. That's going to be a mandatory requirement for the next inspection when it's done. I'm assuming in a year's time. Up until now, it was just they had mentioned it, I guess, but it was sort of a suggestion, if you will. Right. So I just wondered if that is the case. Is that going to be a major? I know it's a major financial thing coming forward. What's the process involved in that?
Well, I spoke with with Long Sue, and there's no and I also spoke with James Beat, our ministry inspector. There is no real algae bloom along our shorelines in that, so they don't think it's going to be an issue on our end. But it is going to come into play next year, apparently.
So I just wondered if if there's, if there's something we got to, take into account with our water plan or intake or whatever. It's hard to say right now.
Yeah, I don't suspect so on our end. Like I said, they're not. There's nothing really in the St. Lawrence that they're expecting with algae bloom. But as of right now, there's nothing from what I understand on my end that we have to do.
And the other part there on the non-compliance issue, as I read that, there seemed to be you've already are going to take measures to, I guess, from the time we take the sample, that they didn't receive the sample. Is that what I'm reading?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, I'd like to address on that. So I just want to tell you our protocol for sampling. So on Monday mornings, we sample water at our municipality and out in the distribution. So what the protocol for the operator is, he goes out and samples water. And then when he's done, he comes back and there's a checklist at the water plant. So they checklist off what they've sampled so we know that we're in compliance. And chain of custody that needs to be filled out. So once the chain of custody fills out, they put it into a cooler and Conducian Labs comes and picks it up in the afternoon. Once it leaves that, it's kind of out of the municipality's hands. We're putting our faith into the lab. So what happened on the incident that with the nitrate on April 1st, our operator took his sample. He did everything correct. He went back, went on the checklist. I seen that the sample was taken. It was the chain of custodies were done. Conducian Labs came and picked up the samples. Everything was, they signed off on it that they'd taken it, what was in the cooler. They took it to the lab, and when they took it to the Conducian Lab, the sample either got misplaced or like lost, one of the two. So anyways, I'm waiting on the lab results. It's usually about a week, and we waited on the lab results and we never got them. So we called the lab up and we asked where our samples, where the lab results were, and they acknowledged that they misplaced it or lost the sample. So at that point, like I said, there's not really much as an operator or anything that we can do at this point. So what they did, so the sample was misplaced. So at that point, I have to notify the ministry that we're missing a sample. And when I notified the ministry, they recognized that it was a lab result, and that's why they didn't give us an AWQMI. They just gave it as a non-compliance. And so anyways, moving forward, they just asked what we could do to make it better. So I reached out to the neighboring municipalities to see what they're doing. They're basically doing the same thing as what we're doing, because once it leaves the municipality, it's kind of out of our hands. But I took it one step farther. I spoke with Conducian Labs. They recognized that they made a mistake, and generally they're like to be honest with you, I've been up in the municipality here for 18 years. This doesn't happen. It's not. I think this was just kind of a one-off. I'm hoping. But so what I asked to hear the lab person at Conducian Lab, if they can send me when our samples get to the lab, if they can send just a verification that they've received the samples, and hopefully that resolves the issue that we had. But normally Conducian Labs are very, very good. So I think I'm hoping it was just a one-off that they misplaced it or lost it or something. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Okay, well, thank you, Dennis. I sort of, you can read between the lines, and your explanation is very excellent, very good, and your report is excellent. So it's one of those things, and I had the faith in the staff there at the water plant. My biggest concern, or my biggest reasoning for pulling this, was just to get an update on the algae bloom. So thank you, and job well done.
Yeah, I was disappointed that it happened as well. But like I said, I try to put everything in our staff. Like our staff, we have checklists. I almost think that we're over the top on a lot of things that we do. I know you can never be over the top, but we have chain of custodies and we have a checklist on the board. Like I don't know. I think it was just like I say, just a one-off. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen again with the lab, and if it does, then we'll have to. I'm hoping that it doesn't happen. Let's put it that way.
Any other comments from council on the report? Deputy Mayor Gardner, please.
Thanks, Mayor Byvelds. Just a quick question with this, Dennis.
Yes?
We have a contract with that lab, correct?
Correct. Well, we don't really have it. No, we don't have a contract with them, Kirsten. We've been just taking our samples there. I don't know. It's been like 18 years. It just, yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just thinking, like you said, a one-off, and one-offs always happen. But if there was a situation where it became more than a one-off, because it's a pretty big penalty if the ministry didn't accept that it just got lost,
Right.
maybe I don't know. Do people not enter into contracts with penalties and that type of thing for water sampling?
I don't know. I've never really looked into it, but I can look into it for you and get an answer for you.
Yeah, I don't want to blow this out of proportion. I'm kind of, you know what I mean? I'm kind of surprised that it, so we're not at fault and they're at fault. Usually there's some sort of penalty or something, you know what I mean? Like something. So.
Yeah, and I think that's why the ministry recognized it. Like the ministry recognized that it was the lab's fault, and that's why like they never gave us an adverse or anything like that. They just gave it as a non-compliance, and they're hoping that it's resolved. But like I say, the unfortunate thing over this, like once it leaves the plant, like it's out of the municipality's hands. So you kind of got to have your faith in the lab, and I think they do a very good job. And like I say, I just hope this is just a one-off.
Yeah, I'm surprised that, is there a barcode? Like, do they scan it when they collect it, or?
So what I have, no, not on their end. They don't scan it. But what I'm having them do now is whenever we bring our cooler in, see the lady that picks up our samples on Monday, she signs the chain of custody off saying this is what's in the cooler, everything's good. But what I'm having now is whenever they bring it to the lab, they're going through the cooler and they're going to send me that chain of custody saying verification that it's actually at the lab that it's done. But the scary part about it, if they still miss the sample at the lab, misplace it after they send me that back, I mean, things can still happen, unfortunately.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
it seems like a pretty short chain.
Right. Yeah, and let's just hope it doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So my comment to that specifically, Dennis, is that you did the right thing in having them email back saying that they've received it, and in the email say what they received and what those tests are going to be. I think having that is your defense to deal with the ministry, yes or no. At least you did your job, and to council, I know that we know that you've done your job. Maybe you just need to follow through and tell the lab that council is concerned, because our duty in this field of drinking water is very serious. We take it seriously, and perhaps sending a letter to their management or president or whoever runs the lab. And I've been at that lab, so it's nothing super high tech, but they do the job and do the job well. Letting them know that council is aware that they made a mistake, and we want to make sure it doesn't happen in the future, and whatever steps you need to take to make sure that chain is followed all the way through is something that would be good for all of us.
Perfect. Yeah.
On the algae bloom thing, just if council's not aware, algae blooms have started to occur in Ontario. The worst one is Lake Erie at the west end. It is caused by pollution entering from Ontario, and mainly from the Ohio's from agricultural runoff. The challenge in Lake Erie is that it doesn't move very fast, so that just makes it even conducive to algae blooms. As Dennis has alluded to, I don't see how an algae bloom could ever start in the St. Lawrence, considering the flow of the flow of the river. So not sure how much longer they'd accept that as a report, but if we ever have to do official report, I guess we need to do it. It shouldn't be hard to do, but we all know that if a consultant has to do a special report for the government, that all of a sudden that's a pretty fancy report that takes 20 pages that I could have done in one. So just a little education. I have no qualms in not having this done. The nitrate one, I do get a little bit concerned because that's a specific parameter we need to watch, and may not be a big concern, but hopefully down the road things get tightened up there. So, and as the rest of the council has said, it was a good report. You know, a few little things that you couldn't fix, but other than that, we do have full confidence in you and your staff to make sure the drinking water in South Dundas is to the standard it needs to be to.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from council? Seeing none. No notices of motion tonight, Madam Clerk.
No, sir.
No closed session, so can you do the ratification bylaw, please?
Moved by Councillor Wells, second by Councillor Lewis, that bylaw number 2020-34 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Go with the vote, please.
Mayor Byvelds,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gardner,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
Yes.
Councillor Mellon,
Yes.
Councillor Wells.
Yes.
Okay, so before the clerk reads the adjournment motion, I'd like to thank council for their work this evening. I'd like to thank staff for their presentations and their discussion. I'd like to thank any reporters on the line, and I'd like to thank all the audience that has participated tonight. If there's any feedback, just let us know, but we're trying to do the best we can and in these challenging times, and hopefully if as I said, any suggestions out there, let us know, and we'll see if there's something we can do. So with that, motion for adjournment, please.
Moved by Councillor Lewis, second by Deputy Mayor Gardner, that council now adjourn to meet again at the call of the chair. Mayor Byvelds,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Gardner,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
Yes.
Councillor Mellon,
Yes.
Councillor Wells.
Yes.
With that ends our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.